The morning sun on Kepler 442b painted the sky in shades of purple and gold. Thylorians moved through their crystal cities with gentle grace, their 6 arms working in perfect harmony as they tended to their gardens and taught their young. These peaceful beings stood 7 feet tall, with skin that changed color based on their emotions. Today, most of them glowed with the soft blue of contentment. In the communication tower at the edge of New Harmony, their capital city, a young Thylorian named Vela worked at her station. She had been on duty for only 3 months, still learning the complex systems that kept their colony connected to the vast network of civilized worlds. Her supervisor, Old Grath, dozed in the corner. Nothing exciting ever happened on their agricultural world. Vela's 6 hands danced across multiple keyboards, checking routine messages and weather reports from their farming stations. The Thylorians had met humans 40 years ago, when Earth's first exploration ship stumbled upon their world. That meeting had changed everything. Humans shared their technology freely, helped them join the Galactic Council, and most importantly, offered something rare in the cold universe: genuine friendship. A sudden beep made Vela's skin flash yellow with surprise. The long-range sensors detected something unusual. Multiple objects moving toward their system at incredible speed. She adjusted the sensors, trying to get a clearer reading. When the data resolved on her screen, her skin turned white with fear. Ships, dozens of them. The angular black design was unmistakable. The Cortex hegemony had come to Kepler 442b. Vela's trembling hand reached for the alarm button. The peaceful morning shattered as sirens wailed across the city. Grath jerked awake, his skin cycling through confused colors before settling on the white of terror as he saw the screen. The Cortex were known throughout the galaxy as conquerors. They had taken 17 star systems in the past century, enslaving entire populations and stripping worlds of resources. The Thylorians had always believed they were too small, too unimportant to attract such attention. They were wrong. The first Cortex ships dropped out of hyperspace just beyond the planet's moon. Their commander, Xerax, stood on the bridge of his dreadnought studying the peaceful world below. The Cortex were massive creatures covered in thick gray scales with 4 eyes that could see in multiple spectrums. Xerax's lips pulled back in what his species considered a smile, revealing rows of sharp teeth. "Another garden world full of weak creatures," he said to his second-in-command. "They will make acceptable slaves for our minds. Begin the attack." The Cortex fleet moved with practiced efficiency. They had done this many times before. First, they destroyed the orbital defense platforms, which were designed more for asteroid deflection than warfare. Then they targeted the communication arrays, cutting the planet off from the rest of the galaxy, or so they thought. In her tower, Vela watched the defense platforms explode in brilliant flashes of light. The other communication officers ran in panic, but she stayed at her station. Her mother had always said she was too stubborn for her own good. Now that stubbornness might be their only hope. She knew they had just minutes before the Cortex found and destroyed their tower. Her 6 hands flew across the controls, diverting all power to the subspace transmitter. She needed to send a message, just one message, before it was too late. The building shook as the first bombs fell on New Harmony. Through the window, Vela saw beautiful crystal spires crumbling into dust. She heard screams from the streets below as Cortex dropships released ground troops. Her people were running, but there was nowhere to go. The transmitter finally powered up. Vela had to make a choice. Which frequency? Who would help them? The Galactic Council would debate for months before acting. The Altarians were too far away. But Earth? Earth had always kept its promises. She tuned to Earth's emergency frequency, the one the human ambassador had given them, just in case. Her hands shook as she began recording the message. Another explosion, closer this time. The walls cracked. "Earth, friend," she gasped into the transmitter. The building lurched. She could hear Cortex soldiers in the corridor below. "Help us!" Cortex killing. The power flickered. She slammed her hand on the send button, just as the door burst open. "Please." A Cortex soldier filled the doorway, pointing a plasma rifle at her. Vela's skin turned the deep black of defiance as she stood to face her fate. The soldier fired. The last thing she saw was her message indicator blinking green. Sent. The message raced through subspace, a desperate cry traveling faster than light but still painfully slow across the vast distances between stars. While it traveled, the Cortex systematically conquered Kepler 442b. They rounded up Thylorians into camps, executed those who resisted, and began stripping the planet's resources. Commander Zarak set up his headquarters in what had been the Thylorian Council Chamber. He reviewed the population counts with satisfaction. 3 million new slaves for the hegemony. The adults would work the mines on various worlds. The children would be reconditioned to serve. It was the same pattern they had followed 17 times before. 3 weeks passed. The Thylorians suffered under their new masters. Hope faded with each passing day. Those who mentioned Earth or rescue were punished severely. The Korthax had blocked all communications. No one could know what had happened here, but in the cold depths of space, Vela's message continued its journey. On Saturn's moon Titan, the Deep Space Monitoring Station operated around the clock. Lieutenant James Park sat at his desk, drinking his 5th cup of coffee and reviewing routine signals. It was usually boring work listening to the cosmos, cataloging stellar phenomena, and maintaining communication with Earth's growing collection of colonies and trading partners. A soft chime indicated an incoming message on the emergency frequency. Park frowned. They hadn't received anything on that frequency in over 2 years. He pulled up the message, noting its degraded quality. It had traveled a long way and suffered interference from various cosmic phenomena. The computer began decoding. Words appeared on his screen, broken and fragmented. Earth, friends, help us. Korthax killing. Please. Park's coffee mug shattered on the floor. He recognized the transmission signature. Kepler 442b, the Thylorians. Earth's first true alien friends were in trouble. Within minutes, the message reached Earth's United Nations Space Command. Admiral Chen Wei, a veteran of humanity's colonial conflicts, read the decoded message 3 times. Each word felt like a punch to the gut. The Thylorians had never asked for anything, had shared their botanical knowledge freely, had sent gifts of art and music. They were the reason many on Earth believed the universe might be a friendly place after all. The emergency session of the United Nations convened within 2 hours. Representatives from every nation on Earth and all colony worlds participated via quantum communication. The debate was surprisingly short. The representative from Kenya stood first. The Thylorians called for help. We answer. The Russian representative nodded. They would do the same for us. One by one, every nation voted. For the first time in human history, the vote was unanimous. Full military mobilization. Immediate deployment. Admiral Chen received his orders within the hour. He turned to his staff, men and women who had trained for this possibility but never believed it would come. Send word to all fleet elements. Activate the reserves. Recall all personnel from leave. His aide looked concerned. Sir, the Korthax hegemony has conquered 17 systems. They have hundreds of ships. Chen's expression hardened. Then we'll build more. The Thylorians asked for our help, Lieutenant. Do you know what that means? No, sir. It means we're going to show the galaxy what happens when someone hurts humanity's friends. He turned to the window, looking up at the stars. Send a message on all frequencies. Let everyone hear it. Tell them Earth answers the call. Across Earth and its colonies, the war machine began to wake. Shipyards that had been building cargo vessels switched to military production. Soldiers kissed their families goodbye. Scientists shared weapon designs they had hoped would never be used. The sleeping giant was awake, and it was angry. The Nevada desert shimmered under the scorching sun as blast doors the size of city blocks slowly opened. Deep beneath the sand, humanity's greatest secret began to surface. For 20 years, Earth had been building. Not just ships, but an entire fleet designed for one purpose: protecting humanity and its allies in a dangerous galaxy. Admiral Chen Wei stood in the command center, watching feeds from dozens of hidden facilities across Earth. The Arctic ice parted to reveal submarine shipyards. Mountain ranges split open in the Himalayas. The ocean itself seemed to boil off the coast of Japan as massive vessels rose from underwater construction bays. How many ships do we have ready for immediate deployment? Chen asked his logistics officer. 200 combat-ready vessels, Admiral. Another 300 in various stages of completion. The officer pulled up a holographic display. We can have the first wave ready to jump in 72 hours. Chen nodded. It wasn't enough to match the Korthax fleet ship for ship. But humanity had never won through numbers alone. They won through determination, creativity, and the absolute refusal to abandon those who needed them. Around Earth, the mobilization continued at a pace that shocked even humanity's own leaders. Factory workers volunteered for double shifts. Retired soldiers reported to recruitment centers without being called. Scientists who had been working on civilian projects immediately switched to military applications. Dr. Sarah Martinez, one of Earth's leading physicists, stood before a room full of engineers. The Korthax use energy shields that can stop most directed energy weapons, she explained, pulling up stolen intelligence data. But kinetic weapons, old-fashioned projectiles, pass right through. We're going back to basics. Railguns, mass drivers, and yes, nuclear weapons. One of the younger engineers raised his hand. Nuclear weapons are banned by the Galactic Council. Sarah's expression was grim. The Galactic Council isn't answering the Thylorians' call for help. We are. In orbit around Earth, the fleet assembled. The dreadnought Normandy served as the flagship, a mile-long vessel bristling with weapons that looked primitive by galactic standards, but were devastating in their simplicity. Railguns that could accelerate projectiles to significant fractions of light speed, missile bays loaded with nuclear warheads, and humanity's secret weapon, an AI network called Aegis that could coordinate thousands of drones in perfect synchronization. The Korthax had made a critical error. They assumed humans were like other spacefaring races, civilized and soft after centuries of peace. They didn't know that humans had evolved on a world where everything, from the smallest microbe to the largest predator, had been trying to kill them. They didn't know that human history was written in blood and struggle. Most importantly, they didn't know that humans had been preparing for this moment since they first learned the galaxy had predators. Captain Marcus Thompson commanded the destroyer Vengeance, one of the smaller ships in the fleet. His crew was a mix of veterans and volunteers, including many who had lost friends on the Thylorian trade missions. As they prepared for departure, he gathered them in the mess hall. "I won't lie to you," he said, his voice carrying to every corner of the room. "The Korthax have more ships, more experience in space warfare, and they've never lost a conquest. But they've also never fought humans. They've never faced a species that turned splitting atoms into weapons, that went to their moon in a tin can held together by rivets and prayers, that considers impossible to be a challenge rather than a barrier." The crew cheered. Similar scenes played out across the fleet. Humanity was united in a way it had never been before. Old enemies put aside their differences. Former rivals shared technology and resources. The entire species moved with one purpose. On the Galactic Council station, Ambassador Tavara of the Altarian Empire watched the human mobilization with disbelief. Her species had ruled their sector for 1,000 years, and even they couldn't mobilize this quickly. She turned to her aide, her feathers ruffling with anxiety. "How are they building ships so fast?" Her aide pulled up the data. "They're using automated systems, Ambassador. Their entire industrial base has switched to war production. They're mining asteroids at triple the safe rate. Their shipyard workers are operating on 4-hour sleep cycles." "That's not sustainable," Tavara said. Humans seem to disagree. The Korthax, monitoring galactic communications from Kepler 442b, initially dismissed the reports. Commander Xerax laughed when his intelligence officer showed him the images of Earth's fleet. 200 ships. We have 600 in our various fleets. And look at their weapons. Projectiles? Chemical rockets? They're using technology we abandoned centuries ago. His second-in-command wasn't as confident. "Commander, their mobilization speed is concerning. And these humans, they're from a death world. Their entire evolutionary history is about survival against impossible odds." Xerax waved a dismissive claw. "Let them come. We'll destroy them like we've destroyed everyone else who opposed us. Send 40 ships to intercept them. That should be more than enough." Back on Earth, Admiral Chen stood before the assembled fleet commanders on a secure hologram network. The room contained representatives from every nation, faces hard with determination. "Our mission is simple," Chen said. "We jump to Kepler 442b. We destroy the Korthax presence there, and we rescue every Thylorian we can. But I want to be clear about something. This isn't just about saving our friends. This is about sending a message to the entire galaxy." He paused, meeting the eyes of each commander. "That message is this: Earth protects its own. Anyone who harms our allies will face the full might of humanity. We're not just going to win this battle. We're going to win it so decisively that no one will ever dare attack a human ally again." The fleet prepared for departure. Families gathered to say goodbye. Children drew pictures for their parents to carry into battle. Musicians composed songs. Writers penned poems. All of humanity seemed to hold its breath. Dr. Martinez made a last-minute addition to the fleet's arsenal. It's called a swarm torpedo, she explained to Admiral Chen. It launches as one missile, then splits into 1,000 micro-warheads. Each one is small, but together they can overwhelm point defense systems. Chen approved it immediately. Every advantage mattered. As the fleet powered up their jump drives, a message went out on all galactic frequencies. It was simple, direct, and impossible to misunderstand. To the Korthax hegemony, you have attacked our friends, the Thylorians. You have 72 hours to withdraw from their system and release all prisoners. Failure to comply will result in the complete destruction of your forces. To the Thylorians, hold on. Earth is coming. To everyone else, stay out of our way. The message sent shockwaves through the Galactic Council. No one threatened the Korthax. It was suicide, but humanity didn't seem to care about the odds. Volunteer reinforcements continued to arrive even as the fleet prepared to jump. A group of cargo haulers retrofitted their ships with weapons. Mining vessels equipped with industrial lasers joined the formation. Even Earth's single hospital ship, the Mercy, refused to stay behind. We'll need medical support for the Thylorians, the Mercy's captain argued, and our crew volunteers for combat rescue operations. Chen approved them all. Every ship, every volunteer, every weapon might make the difference. The jump drives activated in sequence, reality bending around each vessel as they prepared to traverse the vast distance to Kepler 442b. The energy output was so massive that it was visible from Earth's surface, streaks of light painting the night sky. In homes across the planet, people watched and prayed to whatever they believed in. The Thylorians had been the ones to show humanity that the universe contained friends, not just threats. Now humanity would show the universe what they did for their friends. As the fleet entered hyperspace, Admiral Chen sent one final message to Earth. The Thylorians called for help. Earth answers. We'll bring them home or die trying. The fleet vanished into the void, 200 ships carrying humanity's fury across the stars. Behind them, Earth's shipyards continued to build. Factories continued to produce and volunteers continued to enlist. The sleeping giant was fully awake, and it was coming for those who had hurt its friends. Space itself seemed to scream as 200 human ships tore their way back into normal space near Kepler 442b. The violent exit from hyperspace was deliberate. Admiral Chen had ordered a forced jump, a dangerous maneuver that stressed their ship's systems but cut their travel time in half. 17 vessels reported damage, trailing sparks and venting atmosphere, but they had arrived. The Korthax intercept fleet, 40 ships strong, waited in perfect formation. Their commander, Sub-Commander Kraxus, had been confident. 40 ships against 200 seemed bad odds, but Korthax vessels were superior. Their energy shields could withstand tremendous punishment. Their plasma weapons could melt through any armor. They had never lost a space battle. Kraxus opened a communication channel to the human fleet. Unknown vessels, you are entering Korthax-controlled space. Surrender immediately or be destroyed. Admiral Chen's response was not what Kraxus expected. There were no words, no threats, no negotiations. Instead, the human fleet accelerated to attack speed, and thousands of missile signatures appeared on Korthax sensors. The first wave of human weapons were unlike anything the Korthax had encountered. Nuclear warheads, considered primitive by galactic standards, detonated in patterns designed to overwhelm shields. The electromagnetic pulses disrupted Korthax targeting systems. Then came the kinetic rounds. Simple chunks of metal accelerated to incredible speeds that punched through shields like they weren't there. Kraxus watched in horror as 3 of his ships were torn apart in the first 30 seconds of battle. Return fire! All weapons! Plasma beams lanced out from the Korthax fleet, striking human vessels. The destroyer Liberty took a direct hit and split in half. But something strange happened. Instead of retreating or showing fear, the human fleet pressed forward even harder. Captain Thompson on the Vengeance gripped his command chair as his ship shook from a near miss. Helm ramming speed, sir, his pilot questioned. You heard me. Target their command ship. If we're going down, we're taking them with us. This was something the Korthax had never encountered. Space battles were supposed to be elegant, fought at great distances with energy weapons. But humans fought like they were still on their homeworld, brutal and direct. The Vengeance accelerated toward the Korthax formation, weapons firing continuously. Dr. Martinez, aboard the science vessel Einstein, activated humanity's secret weapon. Aegis online, she announced. Deploying drone swarm. From 50 human ships, bay doors opened and thousands of small drones poured out. Each one was no bigger than a refrigerator, equipped with simple thrusters and a small nuclear warhead. But they moved as one, controlled by the Aegis artificial intelligence. The drone swarm flowed through space like a school of deadly fish, splitting and reforming to avoid Korthak's fire. They surrounded enemy ships, attacking from every angle at once. The Korthak's point defense systems, designed to handle dozens of targets, were overwhelmed by thousands. Subcommander Kraxus watched his tactical display with growing panic. His fleet was being torn apart by primitives using ancient weapons and suicidal tactics. A human cruiser, burning and clearly dying, continued firing until it rammed one of his destroyers. Both ships vanished in a nuclear fireball. On Kepler 442b's surface, the Thylorian slaves in the camps heard the thunder of battle above. They looked up to see streaks of light crossing the sky, ships burning as they entered the atmosphere. Hope, dead for weeks, suddenly sparked back to life. Commander Xerax, watching from his headquarters, couldn't believe what he was seeing. His intercept fleet was losing. Not just losing, but being annihilated. Send reinforcements! Send everything we have in the system. But Admiral Chen had anticipated this. As the remaining Korthak ships from around the planet moved to engage, a second human force dropped out of hyperspace behind them. 50 more ships, damaged from their own forced jump but still combat-ready. "This is Captain Rodriguez of the Guadalajara," came a transmission to Admiral Chen. "Sorry we're late, sir. The volunteers insisted on coming." The volunteers. Cargo haulers with welded-on weapons, mining ships with industrial lasers, even private yachts with missile launchers duct-taped to their hulls. They weren't pretty, but they could fight. The battle became a melee. Human and Korthak ships tangled at ranges so close that debris from destroyed vessels became hazardous projectiles. The humans fought with a fury that shocked even their enemies. When the destroyer Washington lost all weapons, its crew put on spacesuits and fired personal weapons from hull breaches. When the cargo ship Lucky Strike ran out of ammunition, its pilot rammed a Korthak's frigate. Captain Martinez led her stealth team in a boarding action on the Korthak's flagship. Humans in powered armor cut through the hull with plasma torches. The Korthak's crew, trained for ship combat but not close-quarters fighting, fell back in confusion. Humans were smaller than Korthaks, weaker individually, but they fought with coordination and pure rage. Martinez herself reached the ship's main weapon control, placing explosive charges while her team held off Korthak's Marines. "Charges set," she called out. "Everyone out!" As her team evacuated, she saw movement. A young Korthax, probably a new recruit, cowered in the corner. For a moment, their eyes met. Martinez could have shot him. Instead, she grabbed him and dragged him with her. "Move unless you want to die!" The charges detonated, crippling the flagship's weapons. The young Korthax, confused by this act of mercy from a species his leaders had called weak, would later become one of the first to speak for peace. The hospital ship Mercy performed miracles. While the battle raged, its crew flew shuttles into the combat zone, rescuing survivors from both human and even some Korthax vessels. When questioned later, the Mercy's captain would say, "We're doctors. We save lives." That's what humans do. The tide had turned completely. The Korthax fleet was broken, scattered. But then something unexpected happened. From the planet's surface, civilian Korthax began launching in evacuation ships. Commander Xerax was abandoning the Thylorians, fleeing with whatever loot and slaves he had already loaded. Admiral Chen had to make a choice. Pursue the fleeing military vessels or save the Thylorians still on the planet. It took him less than a second to decide. All ships began landing operations. Medical teams and engineers first. Marines secure the prison camps. Let the runners go. The Thylorians need us, some of his captains protested. They could end the Korthax threat here, but Chen stood firm. "We came here to save our friends, not for revenge. Begin rescue operations." The human ships descended on Kepler 442b like angels of deliverance. Marines in powered armor broke open prison camps. Medical teams set up field hospitals. Engineers began repairing critical infrastructure. The Thylorians couldn't believe it. After weeks of torture and slavery, humans had come. Not just soldiers, but doctors, engineers, even teachers who had volunteered to help with traumatized children. The The humans gave out their own food supplies, their own medical supplies, even the clothes off their backs to help. In one camp, a human Marine found the body of Vela, the communication officer who had sent the distress signal. She had been executed early in the occupation. The Marine, a tough soldier who had fought in 3 wars, knelt beside her body and wept. He didn't know her name, but he knew she was the one who had called for help. He carefully wrapped her body in his own regiment's flag. The rescue operations revealed the full horror of the Korthax occupation. Thousands of Thylorians had been killed. Tens of thousands were missing, taken as slaves to other worlds. The survivors were traumatized, many unable to believe they were actually free. A Thylorian elder approached Admiral Chen, his skin shifting through colors of grief and gratitude. "You came. We called and you came." Chen put his hand on the elder's shoulder, a gesture of comfort humans and Thylorians shared. "You're our friends. That's what friends do." But even as the rescue continued, Chen received reports that made his blood run cold. The Korthax hegemony had 5 major fleets. The one they had just defeated was only a portion of one fleet. The others were scattered across their empire. But they would come. They would come for revenge. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving a transmission from the Korthax High Command." The image that appeared on the screen was of a massive Korthax, scarred from countless battles. This was Supreme Commander Thrax, leader of the entire hegemony. "Humans," Thrax growled, "you have made a fatal error. You have attacked the Korthax hegemony. For this your world will burn. Your species will be enslaved. Your name will be erased from history." Admiral Chen stood straight, meeting the alien's 4-eyed gaze without flinching. "You attacked our friends. You enslaved peaceful beings. You started this war. We're going to finish it." Thrax laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "One fleet against the might of the hegemony? You will be crushed. One fleet?" Chen smiled, an expression that didn't reach his eyes. "You think we sent everything?" "Supreme Commander, this was just our first response. Earth is building 1,000 ships. Our entire species is mobilizing. We're coming for you." He cut the transmission before Thrax could respond. Around him, his bridge crew stood silent, understanding the weight of what had just been declared. This wasn't just a rescue mission anymore. This was war. The captured Korthax technology lay spread across the hangar bay of the science vessel Einstein. Dr. Martinez and her team of scientists examined each piece with intense focus. Energy shield generators, plasma weapons, faster-than-light communication systems, all technology that should have taken humanity decades to understand. But humans had always been good at reverse engineering, and now they were motivated. "Look at this," Dr. Martinez said to her team, pointing at the shield generator's power core. "They're using a quantum field manipulation we never considered. It's elegant, but it has a fatal flaw. The frequency modulation is predictable." Her assistant, Dr. Park, ran calculations on his tablet. "If we adjust our weapons to match the shield frequency's inverse, the shields become useless," Martinez finished. "We can have this modification ready for the entire fleet in 2 days." Back on Earth, the industrial mobilization had reached a scale never before seen in human history. The African Federation had turned the entire Sahara Desert into a solar collection field, providing unlimited power for massive factory complexes. China's automated shipyards were producing 1 destroyer every 3 days. The American continents had unified their production, creating an assembly line that stretched from Alaska to Chile. Even more remarkably, civilian innovations were being integrated immediately. A teenager in Sweden had designed a more efficient drone control algorithm. It was tested, approved, and distributed to the fleet within a week. A retired engineer in Japan had improved the railgun design to increase projectile speed by 15%. Her modifications were implemented immediately. The Galactic Council watched in amazement and growing fear. Ambassador Tavara called an emergency session. Her feathers ruffled with anxiety as she addressed the assembled representatives. "The humans have increased their fleet size to 400 ships in just 1 month, she reported. At their current rate of production, they'll have 1,000 ships within 3 months. The Altarian representative spoke up. "That's impossible. Our models show that level of production would require their entire species to be involved in the war effort." "That's exactly what's happening," Tavara confirmed. "Every human is contributing. Their children collect scrap metal. Their elderly work in factories. Their artists create propaganda to maintain morale. Their athletes train as soldiers. They've transformed their entire civilization into a war machine. The representative from the peaceful Vendari species was horrified. Surely they'll exhaust themselves. This pace can't be sustained. Tavara pulled up historical data. The humans have a saying, "We can do this all day." Their history shows multiple instances of maintaining similar effort for years during their planetary conflicts. And this time they're united. Meanwhile, the Korthax hegemony was not idle. Supreme Commander Thrax had recalled all 5 fleets to their staging ground at Korthax Prime. 600 warships, the combined might of their empire, prepared for what Thrax planned to be the final battle. He would crush the human fleet, then burn Earth to cinders as an example to anyone who dared oppose the hegemony. But the humans weren't waiting. Admiral Chen had received new orders from Earth. Hunt down and destroy every Korthax fleet before they could unite. Ships equipped with the new shield-piercing weapons spread across the galaxy, tracking down Korthax battle groups. Captain Thompson, his ship repaired and upgraded, led a task force that caught the Korthax Third Fleet refueling at a gas giant. The battle was swift and brutal. The new weapons cut through Korthax shields like paper. Within an hour, 40 Korthax ships were destroyed or captured. Thompson offered surrender terms to the survivors, something the Korthax had never done for their enemies. Similar battles played out across multiple systems. Captain Rodriguez and the volunteer fleet, now properly armed and armored, liberated a slave world where millions of beings from various species had been forced to work in mines. The freed slaves wept with joy, and many immediately volunteered to join the human forces. The momentum was shifting. The Korthax, who had conquered through fear and overwhelming force, were now feeling both directed at them. Their subject worlds began to rebel, inspired by humanity's example. The Thylorians, recovered and rearmed with human weapons, joined the fight with a fury born from suffering. In a brilliant strategic move, Dr. Martinez had figured out how to hack the Korthax fleet communication network. Suddenly, human intelligence officers could hear every Korthax transmission. They learned about supply lines, fleet movements, and most importantly, the location of Korthax slave camps throughout the galaxy. Admiral Chen coordinated the most ambitious military operation in human history. Simultaneous strikes on 17 different systems, targeting every major Korthax installation outside their home system. The attacks would happen at the exact same moment, using the hacked network to ensure perfect timing. The operation was called Liberation Day. When it came, it was devastating. Human fleets appeared in 17 systems simultaneously. Orbital slave processing centers were destroyed. Prison planets were liberated. Military depots were captured or destroyed. In 24 hours, the Korthax hegemony lost control of half its territory. On one prison planet, human Marines found 20,000 Thylorian children who had been taken from Kepler 442b. The Marines, hardened soldiers who had seen terrible things, wept openly as they carried the children to safety. The rescue was broadcast across the galaxy, and even species that had been neutral began to support humanity's cause. But it was the unexpected mercy that shocked everyone. When human forces captured Korthax colonies, they didn't massacre civilians. They didn't take slaves. They established protective zones, provided medical care, and even fed hungry Korthax citizens. This wasn't the behavior of conquerors. This was something new. A young Korthax named Vrax, the same one Captain Martinez had saved during the first battle, began speaking out. "The humans could destroy us all," he said in broadcast to his people, "but they choose mercy. They fight our military but protect our civilians. Maybe we were wrong about them. Maybe we were wrong about everything." His words spread through Korthax space, causing unrest. For the first time, Korthax citizens questioned their leadership's actions. Supreme Commander Thrax was furious. His empire was crumbling, his fleet scattered or destroyed. But he still had 300 ships at Korthax Prime, and he had a plan. If he couldn't have his empire, he would at least have revenge. He would take his entire remaining fleet to Earth and destroy it, even if it cost him everything. But Admiral Chen had anticipated this. The hacked communications revealed Thrax's plan, and humanity prepared its greatest trap. Earth appeared vulnerable, with only 50 ships in defensive positions. It was bait, and Thrax took it. The Korthax fleet arrived at Earth in full force, 300 ships ready to burn the human homeworld. Thrax personally commanded from his flagship, savoring what he believed would be his moment of triumph. "Begin bombardment," he ordered. "Leave nothing alive." But as the Korthax fleet moved into attack position, space itself seemed to come alive. Hidden in the asteroid belt on the dark side of the moon, behind sensor-blocking satellites, 800 human ships powered up their engines. The new fleet, built in just 3 months, revealed itself. The trap was sprung. Admiral Chen's voice echoed across all frequencies. "Supreme Commander Thrax, you are surrounded. Surrender now and your remaining people will be shown mercy." Thrax's response was to open fire. The final battle for Earth had begun. The human fleet attacked from all directions. Upgraded weapons tore through Korthax shields. Drone swarms numbered in the millions. Nuclear mines detonated in carefully calculated patterns. The Korthax fought with the fury of the desperate, but they were outnumbered, outgunned, and outmaneuvered. The battle raged for 6 hours. Both sides took terrible losses. The human flagship Normandy was critically damaged, forcing Admiral Chen to transfer to another ship. The Korthax flagship was surrounded but continued fighting, Thrax refusing to surrender even as his bridge burned around him. In the end, it was Captain Thompson who ended it. The Vengeance, scarred from dozens of battles, made one final ramming run. Thompson's last transmission was simple: for the Thylorians, for Earth, for all free people. The Vengeance struck Thrax's flagship at full speed. Both ships vanished in a nuclear fireball that could be seen from Earth's surface. The remaining Korthax ships, seeing their supreme commander dead and their fleet destroyed, finally surrendered. The war was over. The hegemony was broken, but humanity's response to victory shocked the galaxy even more than their ferocity in war. They didn't execute the surrendered Korthax. They didn't take their worlds as colonies. Instead, they began something unprecedented: rehabilitation. The Great Council Chamber on Korthax Prime had once been a place where conquest was planned, and slave quotas were set. Now it hosted something the galaxy had never seen before: a Truth and Reconciliation Commission led jointly by humans and freed slaves from various species. Admiral Chen, his uniform bearing the scars of battle, sat across from defeated Korthax commanders, not as conqueror to conquered, but as one being to another. "You have a choice," Chen addressed the assembled Korthax leadership. "You can cling to your old ways and watch your civilization crumble, or you can join us in building something better. The humans offer you what you never offered others: a second chance." The young Korthax, Vrax, now served as translator and cultural bridge. He had spent weeks among humans, learning their ways, understanding their strange mixture of ferocity and compassion. "They could destroy us," he told his people. "They have every right to hate us." Instead, they offer healing. Across Korthax Prime and its former colonies, human engineers and doctors worked alongside Thylorian healers and freed slaves from a dozen species. They built hospitals where there had been interrogation centers. They opened schools where there had been indoctrination camps. Most remarkably, they taught Korthax children alongside the children of former slave species. Dr. Martinez, now heading the reconstruction effort, stood in a converted military facility that had become a university. "Knowledge is not a weapon," she told the mixed species audience. "It's a bridge. We'll teach you our technology, our medicine, our agriculture, not because we've conquered you, but because raising you up raises us all." Some Korthax couldn't accept this new reality. Small groups of fanatics attempted resistance, carrying out attacks on human facilities. The response wasn't brutal retaliation, but careful police action. The attackers were captured, tried in courts with Korthax judges trained in human concepts of justice, and sentenced to rehabilitation rather than execution. The Thylorians, meanwhile, had become humanity's strongest partners in this endeavor. Their natural empathy and ability to see emotions through color changes made them perfect mediators. A Thylorian elder named Galen, who had survived the occupation, spoke at a gathering of former enemies. "I have every reason to hate the Korthax," she said, her skin shifting through colors of old pain. "They killed my children. They destroyed my home. But I have learned something from the humans. Hatred is a chain that binds both prisoner and guard. Today we break those chains." The transformation wasn't easy or quick. Many Korthax struggled with their new reality. For generations they had been taught they were superior, that might made right, that other species existed to serve them. Now they were being asked to see others as equals. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source: Korthax children. Without years of indoctrination, They adapted quickly to the new ways. Human teachers reported that Korthak's young ones played happily with Thylorian children, shared lunches with Vendari younglings, and showed natural curiosity rather than prejudice. One image spread across the galaxy and became a symbol of the new age: a human child. A Thylorian youngling and a small Korthax playing together in a garden on Korthax Prime, building something with blocks, their laughter echoing across species boundaries. 6 months after the war's end, the Galactic Council convened for a historic session. Every member species was present, including some who hadn't attended in decades. The question before them was simple but profound: what to do about humanity? Ambassador Tavara spoke first. The humans have shown us something we didn't know was possible. They defeated the greatest military threat our galaxy had known, then chose mercy over vengeance. They've turned conquerors into contributors, slaves into citizens, enemies into allies. The Vendari representative added, but they've also shown they can be the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Their industrial capacity, their military innovation, their sheer determination, it's unprecedented. Admiral Chen had been invited to speak. He stood before the assembly, no longer in military uniform but in simple civilian clothes. "You're right to be concerned," he said. "Humans are dangerous. We evolved on a world that tried to kill us every day. We spent most of our history killing each other. We split the atom and immediately built bombs. We're capable of terrible things." He paused, looking around the chamber, "but we're also capable of choosing not to do those terrible things. We're capable of seeing someone in need and saying, 'I'll help.' We heard one cry for help from the Thylorians, just one transmission from a dying communications officer, and our entire species mobilized." He pulled up a hologram showing the new defensive alliance Earth had proposed. "We offer this to all peaceful species. Mutual defense, shared technology, open trade, and one simple promise. If you call for help, Earth will answer." The vote was unanimous. The Earth Defense Charter was signed by every species in the Council, even some former Korthak subject species that were now independent. The document established Earth as the galaxy's protector, but with oversight and limitations to prevent abuse of power. The Thylorians requested a special addition to the charter. They wanted to establish something called the Vela Protocol, named after the communications officer who had sent the distress signal. It stated that any call for help from a peaceful species would trigger automatic Earth intervention. No debate, no delay. On Earth, the end of the war brought its own challenges. The massive military-industrial complex had to be converted back to civilian use, though much of it was kept ready just in case. Veterans returned home with stories that seemed impossible. The economy had to be reorganized, but something had changed in humanity. The old divisions seemed smaller. Former enemies worked together in the shipyards. Different religions held joint services of Thanksgiving. The unity forged in crisis didn't completely disappear in peace. Captain Rodriguez, who had led the volunteer fleet, now commanded a hospital ship that traveled between worlds, providing medical care to former slave worlds. "We showed the galaxy human wrath," he said in an interview. "Now we show them human kindness. The families of the fallen were not forgotten." Captain Thompson and the crew of the Vengeance were posthumously awarded the Galactic Peace Medal, the first humans to receive the honor. A memorial was built on the moon, visible from Earth, listing every human who had died in what was now called the Liberation War. A year after the war's end, something remarkable happened. A new threat appeared at the galaxy's edge, a hostile species from another galactic cluster probing for weakness. They sent a massive fleet toward a Vendari colony world. The Vendari, peaceful and unprepared, sent out a distress call. Within hours, Earth's rapid response fleet was in motion. But they weren't alone. Thylorian medical ships joined them. Reformed Korthax warriors, eager to prove their change, volunteered their services. Even species that had remained neutral sent support. The hostile fleet was met not by one species but by a united galaxy, led by Earth. The invaders, faced with such unity, withdrew without firing a shot. The message was clear. This galaxy protected its own. 5 years passed. On Kepler 442b, rebuilt more beautiful than before, a monument was unveiled. It showed a Thylorian hand reaching out and a human hand grasping it, with the words "One cry for help was all it took" inscribed in 100 languages. At the dedication, an elderly Thylorian approached Admiral Chen, now retired and serving as Earth's ambassador for peace. "Do you know what you've done?" the elder asked. "We helped our friends," Chen replied simply. "No," the elder said, his skin shimmering with deep emotion. "You've changed the fundamental nature of the galaxy. For millennia, it was ruled by fear. Fear of the strong, fear of conquest, fear of being alone. You've replaced that with something else, hope. Hope that calls for help will be answered. Hope that mercy can follow victory. Hope that enemies can become friends." The elder touched Chen's shoulder. "Your species is young by galactic standards, but you've taught us all something ancient civilizations forgot. That strength's greatest purpose is to protect those who cannot protect themselves." As the ceremony ended and the crowd dispersed, children of multiple species played in the gardens around the monument. Their laughter carried on the wind. Human, Thylorian, Korthax, and others all together, all unafraid. In a secure facility on Earth, the rapid response fleet stayed ready. The crews trained constantly. The ships maintained at peak efficiency. They knew that somewhere, someday, another cry for help would come. And when it did, Earth would answer. They would always answer. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. Humans were indeed dangerous. They were capable of violence that shocked even warrior species. They could mobilize their entire civilization for war. They could be relentless, savage, and absolutely devastating in battle. But the galaxy had also learned that humans directed that danger toward protection, not conquest. They used their strength to shield the weak, not subjugate them. They offered second chances to fallen enemies. They built up rather than tore down. As one Galactic Council historian would later write, "The humans showed us that the greatest strength is not in the ability to destroy, but in the choice not to. They showed us that mercy requires more courage than vengeance. They showed us that one cry for help, heard by the right species, can change the course of galactic history."